Greetings and good morning, and welcome to our daily Devo for Friday, the 15th of September. Our titled devotion for today is Rest for the Life Weary. Rest for the Life Weary from Matthew 11, as you might have guessed if I gave you three choices with that title. Matthew 11:25 through 30, where we find that famous verse 29, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." Something in dire need these days for so many folks, as the world and our lives are in such turmoil, all begun 3 years or so ago with COVID and all the political stuff that came with that. The yoke that Jesus offers to us is for us exhausted folks, the ones who are just, we've just run out of gas. Or if you're an electric human, then maybe your battery's gone. But this is the devotion for today. Life can be exhausting. I could hear all those amens. Life can be exhausting. No group of people in Israel knew this better than Galileans. Jesus mentions yoke twice in these verses. It is likely that he heard fellow Galileans using this as a metaphor for their lives. A yoke was a collar designed to fit around the front shoulders of a draft animal. Its primary purpose was to transfer a load to the shoulders of a draft animal. Its primary purpose was to transfer, I jumped back a sentence if you didn't notice. Its primary purpose was to transfer a load to the shoulders of the animal so that it could expend its energy on tasks like plowing, pulling a cart, or dragging around a threshing sledge. Given the choice, the animal would pursue a different and more pleasant life, but the yoke harnessed the draft animal to a difficult task that was not of their own choosing. Galileans could resonate with that image. A wealthy elite held landed estates and controlled fishing rights on the Sea of Galilee. Consequently, most labored at the direction of others, and they were poorly paid for their efforts. Most Galileans lived at or below subsistence level. The length of their workday, the amount of pay they received, and what they would do on any given day was determined by those less interested in their well-being than using them to get a job done. I think that's why unions were born. The imposed tasks hung on their shoulders like a yoke, robbing them of satisfaction, of certainty, and peace. But that was not the only yoke they carried. Religious leaders also put a yoke on God's people. In particular, the Pharisees taught that God was like those who controlled their work lives. In place of comfort, they offered a rigorous set of rules that also felt like a yoke. Jesus saw and roundly criticized the Pharisees for linking relationship with God to a long and detailed list of tasks that further wearied an already weary group of people. Matthew 23:4. To those exhausted by this kind of life, Jesus spoke of a different kind of yoke. To be sure, there was still a yoke. In the kingdom, there was still work to be done, some of it hard. But behind that yoke is a kindly operator who never asks more than can be delivered. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Matthew 11:30. Jesus offers rest to those exhausted by life. I don't know if my picture in my mind that I have of this is accurate or not, but when I hear Jesus say my yoke, To me, there's the picture that it's not a one animal yoke. It's not a one person yoke. He's already in the yoke, pulling the load. He just calls us along to participate. So we're not carrying the whole thing. He's got it too. And that's why it's easy. That's why it's light. It's not the full load. And we often carry the full load on ourselves, do we not? We think we have to get it all done. We think it's all our responsibility. So many of us love the phrase, if you want it done right, do it yourself. And we live like that, don't we? We're afraid to allow others to come alongside. We're afraid to go alongside others and work together, make it happen together. It's a great picture. Rest for the life weary. I think of the other verse in the New Testament, cast all your cares on him because he cares for you. I encourage you to that today and every day. Do not try to do it all on your own. Do not think that you and you alone have to handle every single issue and demand and responsibility all by yourself in life. That's what the church is for, and I hope you draw on that. If you are a believer, if you're part of a fellowship of believers, that's the whole purpose of us being a church together, is to pray for one another, to help one another, to love one another, so that we're not going through it alone. And it works both ways. Not only do we need to be part of that so that we can receive, but very equally important is we need to be part of that so that we can give. And that's what it's all about. Jesus gives to us, and then he puts us together in a fellowship of believers so that we can help one another, care for one another, lift one another up. The writer of the Hebrews says, do not forsake the assembling of yourselves together, especially in difficult times. Some people do that. They don't think the fellowship of the saints is important for them in their issues. But the writer of the Hebrews expressly says, we really need this more. We really need this more as the times get difficult. Satan has done a very good job at cutting us off from the pack so that we flounder. Don't do that. Don't fall for that lie. We're made for community. Be in community with those who also are in community with the Savior. Blessings to you today.